stuff scares me to death. You know, I spend my time trying to get away from the police. I do not spend my time driving around trying to find them. Yeah. and so it's been tough because, you know, and that white group puts themselves like, why don't nobody like us? You know, they don't go. You know, and we've had folks, you know, and it also is a weird dynamic too that white people have to watch out for, because we also try to follow up on the cases. You talk about a sustainable cop watch. You're going to be sustained by your volunteers and your friends and the relationships you make with other groups in the community. That if something happens to you, like in Toronto especially, you know, it sounds like you guys are really under siege there. And if somebody gets snagged for cop watching, we want to make sure that lots of groups pour out, that there's a big response, you know. And so cultivating those relationships, taking the time, draw up a list of allies, make sure you communicate with them. You know, make sure you go listen, what projects are you working on? What are our points of intersection? What is your important celebration? Juneteenth, for example. Juneteenth is a festival, you can read about it here, but it's a celebration that happens it celebrates the end of slavery, basically. And like, what a wonderful thing to celebrate. So we've been going there tabling at that event and cop watching at that event, because what happens is at the end of the event, the police are like, oh, 6 o'clock, get the hell out of here. And then all of a sudden they start to throw their chest in people's faces, and the young people are like, this is my neighborhood, what are you doing? And so it's often a point of tension and stuff. But even though, you know, it's a lot of white organizers, folks, the organizers of Juneteenth are very happy to see us, and they're like, thank you. We appreciate that you care about our thing and that you're willing to do that. So I think it's a lot about relationships. And also that and accessibility. How many of you guys meet in a public space? That you have a meeting place where people can go and connect with you face to face? Yowza, what are you guys doing? Where are you? How do you? A room of one's own. Wow.
Largely online is our strategy.
Well,
we do some meetings, but it's been more a time of.
Online? How do you have a democracy?
We're actually not set up. 3 founding members have all authority, but we have to respect all inalienable rights, all religions, all everything. We can't cause harm in any capacity. So we're not actually a democracy. We are a self-governing society recognized as unregistered, unincorporated, distinct and separate from Canada, incorporated under Indigenous rights on the land in the Dominion of Canada.
Right, but how do you have democracy?
Democracy is individual rights matter regardless of democracy. If 51% can take away 49%.
How does everybody feel like they're part of the decision making?
Everyone has the right to form their own communities with their own laws and standards.
No, dude.
Just period. Like, that is what I'm saying, though. All acts and statutes are just a corporate system. Like,
if I'm somebody and I'm shocked and appalled by police brutality.
Yeah. Okay.
And I go, I want to meet with like-minded individuals.
Gotcha.
Where do I go?
Gotcha.
Okay, guys.
We meet up with them one-on-one more.
That's step one.
Yeah.
If you were going to set up shop, fine. So it might be time to go through the progressive directory. Churches, synagogues, mosques, you know, especially, I mean, damn, we've gotten a lot of support from mosques, from a lot of Muslims are feeling it. Mm-hmm. And so they might welcome, and to be honest, they're really open, have really been open to any kind of help in dealing with the repression. So it might, if you haven't had much contact with Muslim communities, I would really encourage you to reach out, because say we're doing this project of trying to stop police brutality, or I would presume Native communities or organizations. I'm not really familiar with the groups around here, but you know, oppressed communities might have space to offer you.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
I just have a kind of a question. So in terms of like when you're starting, like if you're wanting to start like an organizational thing, right? What do people think about like calling it Copwatch per se? Like I'm just wondering, we're talking about like making it accessible to people. Like to me, personally, I find that like the word a little bit like frightening, because I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to be a part of something called Copwatch, but doing that same work might be okay. And I'm just thinking about like when you're trying to reach out to like other organizations and stuff, like maybe people would be worried about something called Copwatch, but
Interesting.
if they heard it something like, well, we're wanting to like talk about police accountability, or we're
Sure,
wanting to, you know what I mean?
Toronto Police Accountability
Right,
Project.
exactly, so like
One and
something,
two.
something that, like, I'm just saying, like, sometimes, like, I'm just wondering if people are, have thought about that, how that word, if that has an effect on accessibility?
That's an interesting question. That's an interesting question. I mean, on some level, you know, it's got the same problem as the flyer, right? Like, welcome to hell, you know? But on the other hand, you know, you want to be careful too, not to give too much ground to the repression, and that, you know, it's like, well, I'm not really a communist, I just believe that everybody should have a fair share. You know, we have to be careful not to give up that space, you know, fight for that space.
I think it gets back to your point about relationship building, and I really like that's where you focus actually, because if all you're presenting is the name with nothing else,
Right.
then people will interpret that through whatever filter. But if you are doing outreach, I remember putting up posters for a demo a long time ago. There was a big police convention in Toronto, and we put up posters highlighting brutality and the need for you know, comment and fight back against this. And in the act of putting up the posters, I had more conversations with people.
That's right.
And on a one-to-one basis, everybody has an incident with a cop where they found them to be arrogant, everything from arrogant to brutal, right? And it's usually, you know, the whiter you are, it's more about arrogance, but white people get very upset about the public servants, the people whose salaries they pay, you know, being rude to them. So it's everything from that to that. So I think it really is about those opportunities. I think opening a Copwatch with no context, or in a neighborhood where you really don't know what's going on and you haven't built those relationships. I know in Toronto, the G20, one of the things that happened was people's outrage about the G20, white people, white middle class people's outrage about the G20 pissed off a lot of people of color who've been doing this organized for so long and have struggled to get people to pay attention to what the police do. And I think it's caused more division when it's actually an opportunity. I don't know for sure, it's just my perspective, and being at a few meetings, but where there is potential to actually build something quite strong out of that, and we'll talk about that as a group, so it won't take up too much time. But it's relationship building, really, and it's also about what you were talking about. I want to know, is it always appropriate to Copwatch? Does the person who you're helping always want your help in that situation? How do you figure that out? Because maybe they just, this is something they go through all the time and they want it to be over, and they have no intention to follow up, and they know how it's going to end, and you don't know how it's going to end. Maybe they do. Or maybe you're helping someone who does deserve to have their rights protected with the police. Everybody does, no matter what they've done. But you are alienating some woman who was counting on the cops actually to get there to do something about this situation, because certainly as communities, we don't respond to violence against women well at all. So there's a lot of conversations, I think, that have to happen at the same time, and it's a big topic, so.
Yeah, 1 and 2, go ahead.
Well, I guess like in terms of some lessons that I had, it was sometime, it was like 10 years ago, so it was like early 20s, so was that we wanted to do Copwatch as a tactic that actually didn't have the larger political questions around like justice, or the role of the police, or, you know, restorative justice, or whatever that meant, you know. So when we were confronted with that issue, like, it wasn't the first time that actually us doing Copwatch just kind of escalated the situation, you know, because, I mean, I don't think we escalated, but the police were just like, what are you doing? And like, and then, you know, some of the guys I was working with, and I was like one of the very few women, I was the only person of color, were kind of aggro and really wanting to like take on the police, you know, and like, so they're kind of like, you know, no problem. Really escalating the situation. So it wasn't the first time. So when we came to that situation, and the guy being arrested, he was being violently arrested. Like, it was really, from a sort of, if you didn't know the situation, it looked like it was a, you know, an intense form of police, like they were on him, had his, their knee on his neck, and the guy's like, I didn't do anything, and you know, for the first few minutes, it just seemed like a really kind of arbitrary arrest, and then we were more police were called, and then when the woman came out with the police escort, she started like screaming at us about why we were defending him, and it was just like really uncomfortable, and then the people in the Copwatch were just like, you know, fuck the police, and like going on with slogans and chants and stuff, so,
Okay.
I don't know, it just really escalated the situation,
Wow.
and I think,
That's
and
a
then,
drag.
I think ultimately, I guess the lesson, and it quickly kind of fell apart after that, was that there weren't those sort of larger political questions about how we see justice or police even, you know? Like, I don't know if all of us were completely anti-police. Some of us might have been,
Right.
oh no, there's a role for police for somewhere, and
Right.
those kind of unifying factors
Right.
weren't ever discussed, and it was more like we just wanted to
Right.
record and publicize, and I don't know, so that was probably a big, huge misstep, is that we didn't have the visioning, or we didn't do the organizational development,
Yeah.
you know?
You know, we actually handle that in our training.
Mhm.
And what we tell people in our training is, look, cop watching is this. If you're willing to go out there and agree to these principles, and you can find, we have a training handbook online. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but if you go to our website, Berkeley Copwatch website, it's a PDF, and you're welcome to take any of our materials and adapt them in any way that suits you guys. But that needs to be handled in the training, because yes, we're nonviolent. Yes, we don't interfere in arrests. That's a choice that we made politically, that we're there to document. And that, if, you know, there is a whole variety, and I guess we've, you know, we can struggle with folks politically about the police and so forth, but I absolutely agree in terms of, like, you know, cultural sensitivity or political sensitivity or just common sense. If you're in somebody else's neighborhood, you know, you just, whatever, you show respect. But the other question is that everybody didn't, you know, you didn't pop out of the womb or come out of the egg or whatever, you know, totally politically savvy, you know, far advanced political analysis. That's a process, and if you are aware of your process, then if I say, man, don't cap on the police. I called the police because I live in this neighborhood and everybody's stealing everything and I'm scared to walk out of my house. And these drug dealers got me going crazy. So, don't come around here and talk mess about the police. Now, you can have an intelligent conversation. Say, look, man, we're just here to make sure that they're doing their job right.
Mm-hmm.
We're just here to make sure, we're just here to document. Are they respecting people's rights and doing their job right? I've never had anybody, even in the highest crime area, or even if they're a supporter of the police, they can't argue with that. Right? And that's our bottom line. That's our commonness. But it's foolhardy and privileged to go into a high crime area where there's a lot of police-citizen interactions and try to presume to tell people anything about, abolition when you haven't built any kind of trust with that. That's just a